Okay.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Evening for me because I am now in Australia. But I will present today a study from my PhD, which is this study would be how community engaged learning practices are an opportunity to embed decolonial ideas into the psychology research methods curriculum. I'm a co-total PhD student at the University of Bristol and at Macquarie University, and I have a very big team of supervisors, Peter Allen, Neil Ahmed, Chris Kent, Greg Downey, and Umut Osku. So yeah, just getting started here. Probably we all in this room know that psychology has historically favored Western white perspectives and has endorsed racial biases. We all know about IQ tests and everything that's problematic with psychology. So there has been a recent movement to decolonize psychology, to decolonize the psychology curriculum. And some scholars also discuss how the research methods curriculum often are not seen as a curriculum that has to be decolonized as well. And yeah, some others are now discussing how it can be a place where these decolonial ideas could be embedded. And decolonizing requires us to deeply reflect about Western colonial assumptions that are in research, in teaching, and yeah, in every aspect of our academic work. So I developed in my PhD, I'm in my third year now, so I have done some work. So in my PhD, according to my literature review, I am developing a framework to think about decolonization in the psychology research methods curriculum. So in my framework, I propose that we should embed into teaching, when we are teaching the students about research, we should embed these specific ideas from decolonial theory. So these are concepts. So the first concept is the geopolitics of knowledge and coloniality of power. So this would be a concept that would discuss with students about this division between global north and global south, how we still have this kind of imperialism and colonialism within our geopolitical structure that affect knowledge production and the research that we do. Then I have the coloniality of knowledge and the epistemic racism or violence, which discusses, the colonial theory discusses a lot how positivism is a Western epistemology, the idea that we can find universal, objective truths, being neutral researchers, and we can just reject all the biases that we have, is not really true according to decolonial theory. And then this epistemological dominance of positivism in psychology ends up negating or neglecting indigenous and global majority knowledges and ways of knowing. And then as a new method to teach students, which is already taught in some places, but it's not widely taught, would be participatory and community-based research methods. So methods that are relational, effective, context-based, and that recognize marginalized communities' knowledge through lived experience, through culture, and that emphasize co-production of knowledge and epistemic justice. So my framework basically defends that we should teach these concepts and this method integrated together. So I'm not going to go deeply into the framework because it's I don't have time to do that, but I can discuss with people if they are interested later. But yeah, I did. The key point is that they are taught together. So the power systems would be the geopolitical structure, the colonial biases would be the epistemological reflections, and the restorative action would be the participatory research methods that could maybe break those barriers. So the objective of my study was to test a short course based on this framework, focusing on these 4 questions. So how does this course and the content contribute to students' understanding of decolonization in psychology research? Do they feel like the course effectively introduced them to decolonial theory concepts, the ones that I showed you right now, and community-based research methods? What are students' general reflections about the course and what is most interesting for them? And how could the course be improved and adapted to be integrated into the curriculum? So what I did was I wanted to actually work with external communities. So I reached out to Laila Garzon-Deger, founder from the Latinas in Bristol, which is a community organization for social support of Latin American women living in Bristol, and Bella Rowe, a representative of Healthwatch, which some of you may know, which is an organization that collects data about people's perceptions of the NHS and health and social care in the UK. So I got together with them and I presented that I wanted to teach these things to students, and I presented an idea that they could maybe participate and have conversations with the students. So these were my participants were 10 undergraduate and master's students in psychology and psychology-related fields at the University of Bristol. And they voluntarily signed up to participate in this short course, which was 3 days a week, a whole week. So we met on each group. We had 2 sessions of these workshops. So the first one and the second one, in each one we have 5 people. So it was quite a small group. And then in the first day, we discussed about the decolonial theory concepts. I presented the framework to them and the principles of community-based participatory research methods, just an introduction. And they thought about some questions, some topics of conversation to talk about with the community members from the Latinas in Bristol. So in the next meeting, they in pairs, students in pairs, had interactions, conversations with the Latinas in Bristol community members, some of them that kindly agreed to go to the university and talk to the students. And the objective was just for students to learn about their culture, learn about their experiences. And as some of you may know about participatory research, the focus was more open to what participants or what the collaborators wanted to share with students. So they had some note-taking, and then on day 3, we had a presentation from a Healthwatch representative, and then they presented the work of Healthwatch and the reports that they do to change to send to organizations like the NHS and other organizations. And then students had the opportunity to write a report of kind of a very, very short report inspired by the way that they do their work, because they do community-based research. They go around, talk with communities about their healthcare experiences. So my data was I collected pre and post surveys, perception, and students shared perceptions about their ideas of decolonization and all of these ideas that I presented prior and after. And I recorded the final discussion, and I conducted reflexive thematic analysis in this data. So some of my findings, just for contextualization, students' previous experiences with decolonization activities were minor. So they often said that they discussed things related to diversity and representation, especially in terms of samples, especially in research methods, but not really about further. They didn't go really further than that. And then none of them were familiar with community-based research methods or participatory research methods. None of them had formal education in that before. And as for their expectations, they expected to interact with a diverse community, conduct interviews, and gain practical research experience. So now I will present some of my team. So students emphasized a lot how they liked that the activity kind of made this bridge on the real world and the classroom. So they really enjoyed the hands-on experience, the opportunity to talk with real people, like one student said here, not like in front of a screen, but actually have the opportunity to interact with someone. And one of them said, put decolonial theory into practice. So kind of learning the concepts and then having the opportunity to actually engage with practice around that. So they said that it enabled them to have more motivation for social change, to understand a little bit of, to, like one student said here, recharge a sense of empathy, and also provided them some confidence for practice. So they said that afterwards they feel a little bit more confident in collaborating with communities in the future. Theme 2 would be enhancing research skills. So students, they talked about how the activity enabled them to have a critical reflection of research methods. So I find this quote quite interesting, which is a student saying that the most significant thing that they took out from the activity was to consider adapting the research methods to the community instead of the contrary. So I think that was a key thing that I wanted students to reflect on. And then also they shared about the importance of qualitative research. They talk about how this made them feel like they were interviewing, and it was good to get some experience on interviews. And also, of course, how it enabled them to have some reflections on ethics and also their own biases. So one student, for example, mentioned that they thought that their talk with the community would be very much about difficulties and about bad things, but the community member they talked was very positive and showed very good experiences. So the student had the opportunity to see how they had the biases, that it would be only problems, but it was not really like that. So it was quite interesting. Then on theme 3, I discussed how students had this call for more sustainable and collaborative learning practices. So the students said that they wanted this activity to be more time. So they wanted it to be more spread across weeks. They wanted to engage more with the community, have them to talk about other things as well, and go deeper into the topics. They said that working together with a peer actually helped and enabled them to have confidence when talking with community members. And one student also said that how this activity improved their sense of belonging as an international student, who said that often doesn't see their own demographic being represented in research. So this was an opportunity for them to actually feel that sense of belonging a little bit. However, not everything was perfect, and this theme I discussed, not everything was ideal. So students said some things about the need for clarity, the need for, anyway, so they said that it would be more important to have a bit more structure and guidance to the community conversation, that they felt a bit lost with just the openness and flexibility that the conversation had, which I will discuss a little bit in a bit. Then they discussed about the ethical challenges of working with real communities, that it can be a bit tricky, that maybe communication with community, and also it can be heavy. So students said that some topics arose that were a bit too heavy for them, and if they even got a bit emotional. So they said that maybe putting a trigger warning about, that some heavy topics can come up, because with an open conversation like that, you don't have full control of what can come up. So they told me to pay attention on that. And then, so in this study, students developed more awareness and motivation for social justice work, which is according to other studies that did similar things to mine. Interacting with the community seemed to have promoted a reflective and effective knowledge making. So not just this idea that research only comes from rational things and you have to be objective and neutral, but actually how actually having a connection and talking to people when having affection also can make part of knowledge making, which I think is something that comes a lot in decolonial theory. And students call for more time to engage with community, reflected desire for deep, participatory, and slower learning. However, students' requests for more structure and more guidance also shows how they are immersed in this neoliberal education that always tells them what is right and what is wrong, and they feel a bit lost when things become a bit more complex and messy, which is, for example, part of decolonisation, a part of qualitative research and participatory research. So it's also something to reflect. And then future directions for me. I am now trying to do my final study of my PhD, and I want to test this course in a more condensed way with a larger sample size. So I only had 10 students participating in this. So I want a lot of students this time to think about real curriculum integration. And I want to test this here in Australia and also in the UK, employing mixed methods. And instead of having actually a community interaction, a real community interaction, me and my supervisor, we discussed how in a full cohort that can be very difficult to do, especially within the time frame of the PhD I have. So I developed a case studies booklet. I developed it collaboratively with researchers based in the UK and Australia. that work with migrant communities in the UK, Aboriginal communities in Australia, and Indigenous communities in Brazil. And then I did this booklet, and I'm using it to test the course with a larger number of students. And then this booklet will still be launched later in the year, but you can email me, and then I can send you a copy if you're interested in checking it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, Isabella. That was really interesting. And I love the aspects that you said around heavy topics and it being community-based, and our students learning about research as well, that employability embedded. I'm going to open up the floor to any questions for Isabella about her PhD. So we have Lou first and then Jamie. And if you want to use the hand, because I can't see everyone, but Lou, then Jamie, and we've only got about 5 minutes. So
yeah. Thanks, Isabella. That was really interesting. We're doing some decolonising work at our university in a very, very small way. And I'm just really interested in how your institution is supporting decolonising in a wider sense, and how you might, or you and your supervisor kind of fit into that. Just really looking for examples of where this is working and how it's being supported by institutions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm in 2 institutions, but I can talk more about the University of Bristol, where I ran this study. So I think me and Gaurav, who present after me, we are both, I think, part of our institutional departmental effort in decolonising. So we are PhD students that are focused on decolonising the curriculum, and we only research about that. And we are always presenting to our department. They have like a group that of staff members that are interested in that. So we always have these meetings, I think once a month. So there is a lot of knowledge sharing about the topic. And I think our institution, our department is kind of putting a bit of money on that and supporting recruiting students and also staff members that are interested in this topic and want to work with this topic. So I think that's where our institution, maybe Gaurav can talk a bit more than me because he's still in Bristol, but I think that's where we're going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Lou. And Jamie?
Yes, thank you for that. That was a really interesting presentation. I had a comment and a question, and the comment is some of the feedback was really wonderful. So a student saying the course recharged their sense of empathy. I think, can we make this an international course if it restores the sense of empathy? I think we could all do with more empathy in the world. And my other comment is you've sort of shown how this framework applies to qualitative methodology. How do we teach quantitative data science, like say ANOVA, in a way that emphasizes decolonialism? And that's my question.
Yeah. Well, I think decolonization, I think there is a lot of people discussing about that. I think participatory methods can definitely be applied to also quantitative methods. I think I heard of researchers that when they do psychometric testing, they actually meet the communities and they ask for feedback on questions, and they want to actually involve people in their research process. And I think that's the goal of the principles of this approach, is basically thinking about the inequalities, thinking about involving people in the research. So I think it's maybe integrating the ANOVA to the actual people, and why is an ANOVA important? What do we do with it? How it can impact people's lives? And yeah, I think it's connection with that human part that will make a difference. But I am not an expert on quantitative methodologies, so I don't know if my answer was good.
No, it was. Thank you. Thank you, Isabella, so much. It's such an interesting talk. And I think around the research methodology, the generation of the idea, and there is a space where we can possibly look at sort of mixed methods. So it's lovely to hear that that's your sort of next steps. Thank you so much. And on that note, I will hand over to our second presenter today, who is Gaurav Saxena.